The banker's card failed. Then a little girl does the unthinkable. Richard Blackwell was used to solving all his problems with money and power. His 45 years of life had been a constant climb of success in the banking sector, and his position as regional director guaranteed him respect and privileges wherever he went. But on that Friday afternoon at Parkview Grocery in Oakland, his corporate card was declined for the third time in a row. The cashier, a middle-aged woman named Deborah Johnson, was trying to stay calm while Richard raised his voice more and more. "This machine is broken," he shouted, slapping his hand on the counter. "You don't know how to operate this equipment properly." Deborah felt her face grow hot. 22 years working there, she had never been in such an embarrassing situation. The line behind the man in the suit was growing, and she could feel the judgmental stares of the other customers. "Sir, I've already tried 3 times. The system is showing that the card was declined by the issuing bank," she explained with a trembling voice. "Don't give me excuses," Richard pointed his finger at her. "I'm a director at First State Financial. This card has an unlimited limit. The problem is your incompetence." A little girl of about 5 years old who was waiting in line next to her mother watched everything in silence. Her dark eyes followed every movement, every word of that furious man. She held tightly onto a small, colorful card in her hand. The grocery store manager, Mike Thompson, appeared quickly upon hearing the commotion. Like most business owners in the area, he knew Richard by sight and was aware of his influence in the city. "Mr. Blackwell, what's the problem?" asked Mike, automatically taking the side of the important customer. "Your employee can't process a simple card," Richard gestured angrily. "This is absurd. I'm going to complain to customer service and demand that she be fired." Deborah felt her legs go weak. She needed that job. She was a single mother of 2 teenage children, and at 52 years old, she knew it wouldn't be easy to find another job. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwell," said Mike, giving Deborah a stern look. "We'll resolve this immediately. Deborah, you'll have to explain what's happening." "But Mr. Mike, I followed all the correct procedures," she defended herself. "The system is automatically rejecting the card." "I don't care," Richard exploded. "You're paid to make this work." That's when the little girl stepped forward. Her name was Emily, and she was there with her mother, Jennifer, a nurse at the city hospital. Emily had watched the whole argument, and something inside her couldn't stand to see that lady being treated that way. "Mister," she said, her clear child's voice cutting through the tense air, "why are you yelling at Aunt Deborah?" Richard stopped talking and looked down, annoyed at being interrupted by a child. "Go back to your mother, little girl. This is none of your business." But Emily didn't move. She recognized Deborah as the cashier who always treated her kindly, who saved lollipops to give to children, and who once helped her find her mother when she got lost in the grocery store. "Aunt Deborah is very good," Emily continued. "She always helps me. If the card isn't working, it's not her fault." Jennifer quickly approached to get her daughter, embarrassed by the situation. "Emily, come here, don't interfere in adult conversations," but the girl stretched out her arm, showing the colorful card she was holding. "Look, mister, I can lend you my card." A strange silence fell over the place. Richard looked at what Emily was holding, a gift card from a toy store, the kind children get for their birthdays. "What are you talking about?" he asked, confused. "My grandma gave me this gift card. It has $50 on it. You can use it if you want," said Emily with all the sincerity in the world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The child's innocent offering created a moment of unexpected tension. Richard stood still, not knowing how to react to that unusual situation. Some customers began taking out their phones, filming the scene that was unfolding. "I don't need your card," said Richard, trying to maintain his composure. "I just need this employee to do her job properly." "But she is doing it," insisted Emily. "You're the one being mean to her." The child's brutal sincerity hit Richard like a punch. He had never been confronted like that, especially by a 5-year-old girl in front of a crowd. "Emily, please," murmured Jennifer, trying to take her daughter away. As a nurse, she had learned to avoid conflicts, but she was proud of her daughter's courage. Deborah watched the scene with teary eyes. No one had ever stood up for her like that. The purity of the girl's gesture moved her deeply. Mike, the manager, realized the situation was getting out of hand and tried to intervene. "Mr. Blackwell, let's try another card or—" "No," Richard interrupted, his patience finally running out. "I want a solution now. I'm going to call my bank and prove the problem isn't with me." He took out his phone and dialed a number, turning his back to everyone while speaking loudly, clearly wanting everyone to hear his importance. "Hello, this is Richard Blackwell. I'm having problems with my corporate card." "What do you mean it's blocked?" The expression on Richard's face changed drastically. He lowered his voice, but fragments of the conversation could still be heard. "This must be a mistake. No, I haven't made any suspicious transactions." "What do you mean internal audit?" Emily, who continued watching everything, approached Deborah. "Aunt Deborah, are you okay?" Deborah bent down to be at the girl's eye level, trying to hold back tears. "I am, sweetheart. Thank you for trying to help me. My mom always says that when someone is being unfair to other people, we have to say something," said Emily. "The man was being unfair to you." Richard ended the call with a grim expression. His conversation had confirmed something he preferred not to admit. His card had been blocked due to an internal investigation at the bank. "Mr. Blackwell?" asked Mike. "Did you get it resolved?" It's a temporary problem with the bank's system," lied Richard. "I'll just pay cash." He opened his wallet, but his expression changed again. He only had a few bills, not enough to pay for the items he had purchased. Emily, who continued paying attention to everything, offered her gift card again. "Do you really want my card, mister?" "It's okay, I can buy my toys later." The child's generosity in the face of his embarrassing situation made Richard feel smaller than ever. Here was a 5-year-old girl willing to give up her gift to help a stranger who had been rude to someone she liked. "No, child," he murmured. "You don't have to." Jennifer approached and put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Emily, come with me. Let's let the gentleman handle this alone." But Emily didn't move. She looked directly at Richard. "Why were you mean to Aunt Deborah? She didn't do anything wrong." The simple question echoed through the space like thunder. Richard felt all eyes on him. The cell phones kept recording, and he knew that situation could become a public relations nightmare. I was stressed," he said, lowering his tone for the first time. "But that's no excuse to be mean," replied Emily. "My teacher said when we're upset, we should take a deep breath and count to 10. Deborah Johnson couldn't hold back a small smile. Emily's childlike wisdom was giving a life lesson to that powerful man. One of the customers in line, an elderly gentleman with grey hair, stepped forward. "Sir, if you want, I'll pay for your groceries," he said. "But I think you owe an apology to the young lady over there." Other customers began murmuring in agreement. The situation had completely reversed. Richard Blackwell, who had arrived as the important customer, was now seen as the villain of the story. "Listen here, Richard," said an elderly lady in line. "I've known you since you were little. Your mother, Mrs. Margaret, would be ashamed to see you treating a worker like that." The mention of his mother hit Richard hard. Mrs. Margaret had been a simple woman who worked her whole life as a housekeeper to support the family. She always taught him about respecting workers. Emily was still there, holding her gift card, waiting for an answer. Her silent presence was more powerful than any speech. Richard looked at Deborah, who remained behind the register, with red eyes but maintaining her dignity. He began, but the words wouldn't come out. "Are you going to apologize to Aunt Deborah?" asked Emily. The simplicity of the question broke something inside Richard. He saw in that girl the purity he had lost over the years, the courage to do what was right, even when it was difficult. "Yes," he said finally, "I will apologize." He approached the register where Deborah was. "Ma'am, Deborah, is that it?" he asked, reading her name tag. "Yes, sir." I apologize for my behavior. You were doing your job correctly. The problem really wasn't with you." Deborah was surprised. In 22 years of work, no customer had ever apologized to her after an argument. "It's okay, sir. I understand that sometimes people get nervous." Emily smiled, satisfied with the outcome of her intervention. "There. Now everyone is friends again," she said, clapping her hands. But the situation still wasn't resolved. Richard still had the problem of how to pay for his groceries. His expression showed embarrassment and, for the first time, a certain vulnerability. "Mr. Blackwell," said Mike Thompson, the manager, "if you want, we can note the purchase and you can pay tomorrow." "No," said Richard with a sigh. "That wouldn't be fair." He looked at Emily, who was still holding the gift card. "Young lady, Emily, isn't it?" She nodded. "Would you really lend me your card?" "Of course," she said, extending the card. "But you promise you won't yell at Aunt Deborah anymore." "I promise," said Richard, and for the first time in a long time, his promise was sincere. He took Emily's colorful gift card and handed it to Deborah. "Please use the $50 on this card. I'll give you the rest in cash." Deborah processed Emily's gift card. The transaction went through without problems. Richard completed the payment with the cash he had in his wallet. "Thank you," he said to Emily. "Tomorrow I'll come here to pay you back, okay?" "No rush," said Emily. "My grandma always says when we help someone, we shouldn't expect anything in return." Jennifer watched her daughter with pride. As a nurse, she had seen many moments of humanity, but rarely something as pure as her daughter's gesture. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. This really helps us, who are just starting out. Now continuing. Richard finished paying and picked up his bags. Before leaving, he turned to Deborah again. "Deborah, I want to apologize once more, and I want you to know that I'll speak with Mike about how professional you were throughout this whole situation." Deborah was moved. After so many years of being treated as just another employee, finally someone recognized her professionalism. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell." He bent down to be at Emily's eye level. "And you, little one, thank you for teaching me an important lesson today. You're very brave." "I just did what was right," said Emily. "My mother always says we have to protect those who are being mistreated." Richard left the grocery store carrying more than his purchases. He carried a deep reflection about the man he had become and about the values he had lost along the way. In the following days, the story of Emily and Deborah began to circulate around town. The videos that some customers had taken went viral on social media, showing the moment when a 5-year-old child taught a powerful executive a lesson in humanity. Richard kept his promise. The following Saturday, he returned to the grocery store looking for Emily and Jennifer. When he found them shopping, he approached with a genuine smile. "Emily!" he called. The girl ran to him excited. "Hi, Mr. Blackwell! You came back!" "Of course I came back. I brought the money you lent me," he said, handing her a $50 bill. "Thank you," said Emily, putting the money in her little pocket. "Is Miss Deborah okay?" "Yes, she is. Actually, I have a surprise for you. I scheduled a conversation with the owner of this grocery store. I talked about how professional Deborah was and how brave you were. They want to do something special for both of you." Jennifer approached, curious. "What do you mean by that?" "Well," said Richard, "the grocery store owner was impressed with the story. He wants to promote Deborah to customer service supervisor. And for Emily, they want to create a small children's citizenship program where brave children like her are recognized." Emily jumped for joy. "Miss Deborah is getting promoted. How cool!" "And there's more," Richard continued. "I spoke with my wife and we would like to create a scholarship fund for children of the grocery store employees. The first beneficiary would be Emily, for when she's older." Jennifer was moved. "Mr. Blackwell, that's very generous, but it's not generosity," he interrupted. "It's justice. Your daughter taught me something I had forgotten, and Deborah showed me what dignity in work means. Both of you deserve to be recognized." At that moment, Deborah approached. She had been informed about the promotion that morning and was beaming. "Emily," she called. "Young lady, you changed my life." Emily ran to hug Deborah. "Miss Deborah, Mr. Blackwell told me you're going to be the boss now." "Supervisor," corrected Deborah, laughing, "and all because you had the courage to stand up for what was right." Richard watched the scene with a sense of completeness that he hadn't felt in years. His banking career had been successful in financial terms, but it had left an emptiness in his soul that he didn't know how to fill. "Mr. Blackwell," said Jennifer, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "What really happened with your card that day?" Richard hesitated for a moment but decided to be honest. My card had been blocked due to an internal audit at the bank. I was being investigated for some questionable decisions I made in recent months. I was nervous, afraid of losing my job, and I ended up taking it out on Deborah. "And what happened with the investigation?" asked Deborah. "It's all resolved, but the process made me reflect on many things. I realized I had become someone my own mother wouldn't recognize, someone who uses power to humiliate instead of help." Emily looked at him with her curious eyes. "And now you're going to be good all the time?" Richard laughed. "I'll try, Emily. You taught me that being good doesn't cost a thing, and that sometimes we need courage to do what's right." Weeks passed, and the story continued to generate positive developments. Deborah adapted quickly to her new position, implementing humanized customer service training for all employees. Her life experience and natural patience made her a respected leader. Richard, in turn, began visiting the grocery store regularly, not just for shopping, but to observe how Deborah was doing in her new role. He had become a sort of informal mentor, offering management advice when asked. Emily, whenever she visited the grocery store with her mother, was received like a little celebrity. The employees knew her, the customers greeted her, and she always made sure to visit Deborah at her new post. One day, 3 months after the initial incident, Richard arrived at the grocery store with a different proposal. "Deborah," he said, approaching the supervisor, "I have an offer to make." "What is it?" she asked, intrigued. "The bank where I work is looking for someone to lead a new customer service department, someone who truly understands what it means to serve people with respect and dignity. I thought of you." Deborah was speechless. "Mr. Richard, I don't have a college degree. I've worked in retail for over 20 years, and that's exactly why you're perfect for the position," said Richard. "You know customer service in practice. You know what it's like to be on the other side of the counter, and more importantly, you have something you can't learn in college: character. But I don't know if I'm ready to work at a bank." "I'll help you adapt," offered Richard, "and the salary would be 3 times what you make here, with full benefits." Deborah thought about the proposal. It was an incredible opportunity, but leaving the grocery store after so many years wouldn't be easy. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. No pressure." That afternoon, when Emily arrived with Jennifer to go shopping, Deborah told them about the proposal. "Aunt Deborah is going to work at a bank?" asked Emily, impressed. "Maybe, sweetie, but I'm scared. It's very different from what I do here." Emily held Deborah's hand. "Remember when you told me that when we're scared, we have to take a deep breath and be brave?" Deborah smiled, her own wisdom being returned by that special child. "Yes, I remember." "Then take a deep breath and be brave," said Emily. "You're going to be the best employee at Mr. Richard's bank." The girl's simplicity and confidence touched Deborah's heart. She realized Emily was right. The time had come to be brave. The next day, Deborah sought out Richard. "I accept your proposal," she said, "but with one condition." "What?" "I want to be able to implement at the bank the same principles of humanized service that I learned here. I want customers to be treated like people, not like numbers." Richard smiled. "That's exactly why I want you on my team." Deborah's transition from the grocery store to the bank was smooth thanks to Richard's support and her own dedication. She brought to the banking environment a unique perspective, that of someone who understood the needs and concerns of ordinary customers. In no time, the bank's customer service department became a benchmark in the region. Deborah implemented training based on empathy and respect, changing the institution's service culture. Emily continued to be a special presence in the lives of both Deborah and Richard. On weekends, they would meet at the city park, where Emily played while the adults talked about work and life. During one of these conversations, Richard made a confession. "You know, Deborah, I was thinking, that day at the grocery store was a turning point in my life." "How so?" "I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, focused only on money and power, forgetting the values my mother taught me. Emily brought me back to who I really am." Deborah watched Emily playing on the slide. She has that gift. She can see the good in people even when they can't see it themselves. "And you," Richard continued, showed me that competence and character go hand in hand. At the bank, I only saw numbers and results. You taught me that behind every account there's a person with dreams and needs. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 6 months after joining the bank, Deborah had revolutionized the institution's customer service. Customer complaints dropped dramatically, and employee satisfaction increased significantly. She had created an environment where respect and efficiency went hand in hand. Richard, inspired by the changes Deborah implemented, decided to expand the concept to other departments. He proposed to the bank's board the creation of a customer service humanization program across all branches. The proposal is simple, he explained during a board meeting. We treat our customers as we treat our own families, with respect, patience, and genuine concern for their needs. The CEO, initially skeptical, was convinced by the results achieved in Deborah's department. Richard, if you can replicate these results in all branches, we'll have the most respected bank in the region. The project was approved, and Deborah was promoted to corporate consultant for humanized service. Her mission was to travel to the bank's branches, training teams and implementing the new service philosophy. During one of these trips to the city of Sacramento, Deborah had an experience that deeply marked her. At one of the branches, she met Mrs. Eleanor, a 70-year-old lady who had been trying to resolve an issue with her retirement for months. "My dear," Mrs. Eleanor said to Deborah, "no one here listens to me. They say my documents are wrong, but I know they're right. My late husband always organized everything properly." Deborah sat with Mrs. Eleanor and carefully reviewed all the documents. She discovered that the problem wasn't with the documentation, but with the bank system, which wasn't recognizing an older format of certificate. "Mrs. Eleanor, you're right. Your documents are perfect. I'll fix this for you today." Within 2 hours, Deborah had solved a problem that had been troubling Mrs. Eleanor for months. The elderly lady's gratitude reminded Deborah of why she had accepted the job at the bank, to make a difference in people's lives. When Deborah returned to Oakland, she found Emily waiting for her at the bank. The girl, now 6 years old, was accompanied by Jennifer and carried a colorful drawing. "Aunt Deborah!" shouted Emily, running to hug her. "Hi, Princess. What are you doing here?" "I brought you a drawing," said Emily, handing over the paper. The drawing showed Deborah in her bank uniform, smiling and helping a person who was crying. Above, in colorful letters, it read, "Aunt Deborah, the woman who helps everyone." Deborah was touched. "It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever received, Emily." "My teacher asked us to draw our heroes," explained Emily. "I drew you because you help people and are very brave." Richard, who had witnessed the scene, approached. "Emily is right, Deborah. You truly are a heroine. Not just for her, but for all the people you help here at the bank." Jennifer smiled, watching her daughter. "Emily won't stop talking about you two. She says you're her best adult friends." "And we are," said Deborah. "This little girl changed our lives." "Actually," said Richard, "I have a proposal for you all." Everyone looked at him curious. "The bank is organizing a financial education program for children. We want to teach them early about household budgeting, saving, and mindful spending. I thought of inviting Emily to be our first child ambassador." Emily looked confused. "What's that?" "It means you would help teach other children about money," explained Deborah, "and show them how important it is to be kind and honest." "Can I teach about sharing too?" asked Emily. "Like when I shared my card with Mr. Richard." Richard laughed. "Especially that, Emily, about generosity and helping others." Jennifer was moved by the proposal. "Would it be a weekend program?" "Yes," confirmed Richard. "Once a month on Saturday mornings. Emily would share her story and participate in educational activities with other children." "I accept," said Emily, before Jennifer could even respond. "I'll teach all the children to be friends like Aunt Deborah." The bank's children's financial education program was launched 2 months later, with Emily as the star. The first meeting attracted over 50 children and their parents, curious to meet the girl who had become famous in town. Emily, despite her age, proved to be a natural speaker. She told her story in a simple and captivating way, explaining how a small act of kindness can make a big difference. "I just wanted to help Mr. Richard and Aunt Deborah," she told the children listening attentively. "I didn't know it would turn into all this, but I learned that when we're kind, good things happen." A girl in the audience raised her hand. "Emily, were you scared when the man was shouting?" "I was," admitted Emily. "But my mum always says that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right, even when you are scared." Richard watched the presentation with admiration. That 6-year-old was giving life lessons that many adults needed to learn. After the presentation, during the snack time, a mother approached Jennifer. "Your daughter is special," she said. "My son mentioned at home about being kinder to store employees after hearing her story." "Emily has always been like that," replied Jennifer. "Since she was little, she cares about others. Sometimes I think she's more mature than many adults." Deborah joined the conversation. "What Emily has isn't maturity," she said. "It's purity. She sees the world as it should be, a place where people help and respect each other." The success of the children's program led the bank to expand its social initiatives. Richard proposed to the board the creation of a social responsibility institute, with Deborah as coordinator and Emily as inspiration. "The idea," explained Richard during the project presentation, "is simple. If a 6-year-old child can inspire positive changes in our institution, imagine what we can do if we apply these principles systematically." The institute was approved and launched on the 1-year anniversary of the supermarket incident. During the launch ceremony, Richard gave an emotional speech. "1 year ago, my card was declined at a grocery store. I reacted poorly, blaming an employee for my problem. It could have been just another episode of rudeness that happens every day. But a 5-year-old girl had the courage to intervene and teach me a lesson that changed my life." He looked at Emily, who was sitting in the front row with Jennifer. "Emily taught me that small gestures can have big consequences, that kindness costs nothing but is worth everything, and that sometimes we need the courage of a child to remind us of who we really are." Emily stood up and waved at him, making the audience laugh. "Today," Richard continued, "we launch this institute with the mission to spread the values that Emily taught us: respect, generosity, and courage to do what's right." Deborah was called to the stage to talk about the institute's projects. "Our first project will be creating a microcredit fund for small business owners," she announced. "We want to help people who have dreams but don't have access to the traditional banking system." "The second project," she continued, "will be a job training program for people who have been unemployed for a long time. We want to give opportunities to those who need it most. And the third project will be expanding the children's financial education program to public schools in the region." The audience applauded each announcement. Emily, moved to see the results of her small intervention, whispered to her mother, "Mommy, I just wanted to help Aunt Deborah. I didn't know I was going to help so many people." Jennifer hugged her daughter. "Sometimes that's how it is, my love. When we do good, it multiplies in ways we can't even imagine." 2 years had passed since the incident at the grocery store. Emily, now 8 years old, continued to be an ambassador for the children's program, but had also developed other interests. She had become a little leader at school, always standing up for classmates who were being mistreated. Deborah had established herself as one of the most respected professionals in the regional banking sector. Her institute had already helped hundreds of people, and she often received invitations to speak in other cities. Richard had been promoted to vice president of the bank, largely due to the success of the social programs he had implemented. But more important than the promotion was the personal transformation he had experienced. On a Saturday afternoon, the three met in the same park where they used to talk. Emily played while Deborah and Richard watched. "Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if Emily hadn't intervened that day," said Richard. "Me too," replied Deborah. "I'd probably still be working as a cashier, being mistreated by rude customers." "And I probably would have lost my job in auditing," admitted Richard. "My behavior was getting worse and worse. Emily saved me from myself." Emily ran over. "What are you talking about?" "We were talking about how you changed our lives," said Deborah. Emily thought for a moment. "You changed your own lives. I just reminded you to be kind." The child's simple wisdom once again surprised the adults. "You're right," said Richard. "You just showed us the way." We decided to follow it. "And it was the best decision we ever made," added Deborah. Emily smiled. "Can I play a little more?" "Of course, Princess," said Deborah. As Emily returned to the playground, Richard and Deborah watched her in silence. Both knew that special child had planted a seed of kindness that would continue to grow for a long time. "Deborah," said Richard, "I have another proposal for you. Now, I'm curious. The bank is considering opening branches in other cities. They would like you to lead the expansion, implementing our philosophy of humanized service from the very beginning." Deborah was surprised. "Would that mean a lot of traveling?" "Yes, but it would also mean the opportunity to bring what we've learned here to many more people." Deborah looked at Emily, who was helping a younger child on the slide. "You know, Richard, I think this is a mission worth pursuing. If we can create more places where people are treated with dignity, we'll be honoring the lesson Emily taught us." "So do you accept?" "I accept, but with one condition." "What is it?" "Emily remains our official ambassador. Wherever we open a new branch, she has to be there at the opening to tell her story." Richard laughed. "I think Emily will like that idea." They called Emily over to tell her about the new proposal. The girl was excited about the prospect of traveling and meeting new people. "Will I be able to teach children in other cities to be kind too?" she asked. "Yes, you will," Deborah confirmed. "How cool!" exclaimed Emily. "I'll bring my new piggy bank to show them." Richard and Deborah laughed. Emily had received a new piggy bank from the bank, but she still kept the old gift card framed in her bedroom as a reminder of the day that changed everything. 5 years after the initial incident, Emily was 10 years old and had become a bit of a local celebrity. Her story was told in schools, and she had been invited to speak at events about social responsibility. Deborah had expanded the program to 12 cities, always with Emily present at the openings. Each new branch implemented the principles of humanized service from day one. Richard had been promoted to bank president and was considering expanding the model to other states. The institution had become a national benchmark for social responsibility and customer service. During one of these openings in the city of Johnson, a journalist asked Emily, "Emily, do you realize that your attitude that day at the grocery store changed many people's lives?" Emily, always spontaneous, replied, "I think people were already good. They just needed someone to remind them of that, like when you forget where you put a toy and someone helps you find it." The answer was quoted in newspapers across the country, cementing Emily as a symbol of childhood kindness. But to Richard and Deborah, Emily remained simply the brave girl who had the courage to do what was right when the adults around her were failing. In an interview with a national magazine, Richard reflected on the experience. "Emily taught me that leadership isn't about position or authority. It's about the courage to stand up for what's right, regardless of the circumstances." A 5-year-old child showed more leadership that day than I had in years of my executive career. Deborah, in the same interview, added, "What I learned from Emily is that competence and kindness aren't opposites. In fact, when we treat people with respect and dignity, they respond with their best selves. That creates a positive cycle that benefits everyone." The story of Emily, Richard, and Deborah became a case study in business schools, showing how small actions can lead to major organizational and social transformations. But more important than the academic recognition was the real impact on people's lives. Thousands of customers were served daily with the respect and dignity that Emily had stood for that day at the grocery store. On her 10th birthday, Emily received a special surprise. Richard and Deborah organized a party at the park where they used to meet, inviting all the people who had been impacted by the bank's social programs. The event was attended by small business owners who had received microcredit, people who had found jobs through training programs, and hundreds of children who had participated in financial education workshops. "Emily," said Richard during the celebration, "5 years ago you taught me that small gestures can change the world. Today we want to show you how many lives you've touched." One by one, people stood up to share how the programs inspired by Emily had changed their lives. There was the lady who managed to open her bakery thanks to microcredit, the young man who got his first job after the training program, and dozens of children who had learned about generosity and kindness. Emily listened to each story with shining eyes. She was beginning to understand the magnitude of what had happened because of her simple gesture at the grocery store. When everyone had finished speaking, Emily stood up. "Folks," she said, with the maturity of her 10 years, "I didn't do anything special. I just did what my mother taught me, to help those in need and be kind to everyone." She looked at Richard and Deborah. It was Uncle Richard and Aunt Deborah who made all the difference. They took a small thing I did and turned it into something huge that helps a lot of people. The simplicity and humility of Emily moved everyone present. "But I learned something important," she continued. "When we do good, it doesn't stop. It keeps growing and helping more and more people. It's like a seed that grows into a giant tree." Richard approached Emily. "Emily, you're right, and we want to plant more seeds. Will you keep being our partner?" "Always," replied Emily. "Let's help everyone who needs it." The celebration ended with everyone singing happy birthday to Emily, but the real celebration was for the values she had helped spread: kindness, respect, courage, and the certainty that small gestures can create big transformations. Years later, when Emily was in college studying social work, she would still be remembered as the girl who changed a company, inspired a city, and proved that kindness never goes out of style. And Richard and Deborah, now respected leaders in their fields, never forgot the fundamental lesson they learned: that sometimes we need the courage of a child to remind us of who we really are and the good we can do in the world. Emily's framed gift card, which had started this whole story, remained in her room as a reminder that small acts of generosity can truly change the world. End of story. And you? What did you think of Emily's story? Can you imagine how a small act of kindness can transform entire lives? Leave in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you've ever witnessed a similar situation. Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one.